Hi. First, I want to say Happy New Year, everybody. Hope everybody had a wonderful, safe evening, wonderful holiday season, and wonderful, beautiful, bright blessings for 2023. I was going through my memories of the day throughout the years, and I realized some huge milestones that had been accomplished. And then there were also some things that came along there that made me go, you know, and I think the thing that stood out the most was struggling with the need to exist and to be acknowledged for existing. Oftentimes I think that we go through things in our lives that are huge accomplishments that no one else really realizes or notices, and that they don't maybe see the work put in. And you know what? That's okay. Do you see it? Do you see the work you put in? Do you see the value of the things you've done? And it's interesting to go through those things and collect the gratitude, right? Like appreciation for the hard work done. You know, you should appreciate yourself. And so I've also been going through the Heathen Stargazers like repertoire of stuff, because it's varied, right? And you're like, what does divination have to do with earthquakes? What does any of this have to do with anything? And I did write down some stuff because it is kind of confusing how it all connects, and to be completely honest, I didn't expect it to turn into what it's become. But all of it is relevant and all of it is relative. So it's basically, we're depicting ancient and pre-Christian sky symbols and art, cave paintings, rock sculptures, megaliths, things of that nature. Why did they make them this way? Why did they put them where they put them? And so it comes down to decoding the interpretation, the science, history, art, myth, story, and philosophy. Right? So everything was based on the calculations of time. And once they figured out how to calculate time, they could now master their worlds even that much better. So all of these things that we see, are evolution. They're evolutionary. Okay, they started at one point and they evolved and grew and became something else. So we start with a stick and a shadow, and then the placement of pebbles, and then the incorporation of a string. And once we have incorporated the string, we now can graph and recreate our own version of the natural cycle that we have calculated and observed. So that comes to rocks. Bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger. And where do they sit? And how do we know what time it is when we're traveling? Say we're nomadic, right? And we're on this side of the peninsula, say, at this time of year, but then we have to travel to this peninsula at that time of year. A, how do we know when to do that? And B, how do we know what time it is when we get over there? Because we could have traversed time zones, right? Modern time zones, because the world is round. And so it is a different time east of here than it is west of here. And they had to have understood that this happens, right? Because their natural biological clock is going to want to eat at a certain time, and according to the light, it's not that time yet. And the only thing that's different is that we've moved from there to here. So let's mark that. All of this is very common sense. All of this is very like functional, practical, right? And humans are smart. We're smart critters. We figure things out. We're adaptable. Above and beyond all else, more than our thumbs, we are adaptable in our minds. And the more adaptable we are, the more likely it is that we will survive. So they started to place these stones, and then they started to understand how shadows and light work, and they mimicked the things that they saw in nature, and they began building structures. And then those structures were proportional, right? So they didn't have formulas, they didn't have Arabic numbers, they didn't have Newton, right? But what they did have was proportional geometry and ratios. And they understood that humans are built to a specific ratio where they say we're perfect, right? With a perfect ratio. But that's just because everything, maybe there's other reasons, but let's say one of them is because we are proportional in a sense that every person's arm is proportional in their body to their foot, to their head size, equals, 6.5 of women, 7 of men, like, and artists understand this, and it's part of how illustrators draw, and it was part of architectural upbringing in the classical era and previous to that, because it was a way to communicate with workers how to build in proportion. So everybody has a forearm, and your forearm is the same length as that. Can you make 6 things exactly that big? And then can you take a third of that size and recreate 12 things that big? And then can you make a few more other things in multitude that are this big? Now, they're all going to be in proportion to the person who measured that size of themselves, but people are kind of, in a general standard for the most part between A and B size. So anyway, it was a way. And if you only have like 3 people measuring, you say, okay, you guys are all about the same size, put out your arms. Okay, you guys are all about the same size. You're in charge of measuring. Go measure. And then everybody else does the rest of the other things. It's not rocket science yet. But it does evolve into that. It evolves into the Parthenon. It evolves into the pyramids. It evolves into the Burj Khalifa. It evolves into us. And so we have a certain set of principles and a certain set of rules that have been established for us historically. And so we are born into those things, and that is our first initial contact with a sense of sensibility. And so that's what we will translate everything through. And if that is a Latin, Roman, Christian, Catholic, however you have been built, whatever structure has been given to you to be built, everything else is going to be interpreted through that. But what came first? Something came before that. We know something came before that, and we wonder why the myths sound so strange. Why would you equate it that way? Why would you say it that way? Why would it be that thing? And it's because they had different sensibilities, and they were interpreting and translating the observations around them through a different lens. But it was a pure lens. It was a natural lens. It was a more accurate lens. It wasn't shaped by the need and desire to control a populace, which is what happened when civilization developed. Check out the Precession of the Equinoxes videos. Now, I've made a ton of work and videos and put things out on the website, and I can't focus on something consistently without neglecting other things. So I kind of move through them, and once my curiosity is satiated and I feel like I've absorbed as much as I can possibly absorb from a certain thing, I'll move on to something else. And you bet I will come back to the other thing. You bet that they all connect and that they all relate. So when I'm doing tarot, I'm trying to understand, and astrology, I'm trying to understand our evolution of self. That's the evolution of psychology. It could be woo-woo, right? It could be spirit. That's part of us. But it doesn't take away from the practical application of self and psychology that has been developed for literally eons. So let's give it a chance. Give ourselves a chance. Explore that. When I talk about geometries and megaliths and old languages, I'm actually talking about timekeeping, navigation, maps, math, proportional geometries, ratios, all of these things that explain stuff. Explain stuff. It's science. It's the science of life and how it was interpreted and recorded throughout history. And it's really hard for us to understand because we have all of this backlog of digging to go through, mostly within ourselves. Milo's excited. And it's very, very sophisticated. And the social structures were based on these calculations. We had holidays. We celebrated things. There were gods associated with things that were the anthropomorphic personification of the characteristic behavior of those times of years, of what to expect from those specific things. We give them life, right? And believe you me, they do exist. They're real. They're real. Going through all of this has, they tell you, like, all these scientists, and they tell you that they get to the end and there has to be a God, there has to be a creator. There are things going on that are not, okay, woo-woo, but probably not. And not, and I want to kind of, it's really hard to kind of surf that middle area between what is real and what is human imagination, what is based in practical and what is based in fear, right? Are we doing this because it's instinctually based? Are we doing this because it's intuitively based? Is this something that we want to get rid of or something we want to go toward? When we have to dissect those things within ourselves, astrology, figure out your chart, dissect yourself, all right, and why we're going in these directions. And then we can really start to understand why we keep going to these places where we don't want to go, why human evolution and technology can progress, and yet we as basic animals are still violent and mean. And where is it within ourselves? I mean, we need to supersede something here. My dogs agree. And so yeah, and also too, that when we start to put something out there that makes a lot of sense, it will get knocked down or it will get buried. Now you can go, there's a gentleman right now who's exercising the time-old practice of calling the cops on himself to get attention, right? We do this. Maybe they don't want us to call attention. Maybe they don't want me to call attention to that, but I'm going to say it, damn it, because it's dirty. It's kind of stupid, but it works. All right. So I'm going to call out these people for pulling this bullshit, because it's bullshit. But I'm also going to call out all of you for jumping on it like rabid dogs, okay? Like, oh my God, they said that the whole school is against this person's thoughts and blah, 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 when most of them, there's a, yeah, something's not right there. There's something going on. I can see it, and I think a lot of people can see it too, which is why it's maintaining the ability to be controversial, because there's some truth, but there's not a lot of, I mean, and so what that does when that happens is it takes other people's work, like myself and many, many others who are actually putting in the work and trying to understand it and being realistic, and it degrades everything that we have done so far, because it associates us with people who have taken small bits of our work and manifested this junk, this theater show, and then it takes the credulity away from us and themselves and real science. But man, is it entertaining. Oh man, is it entertaining. So I'll say I've boycotted that. I haven't watched it. There's a lot of things I boycott because I need to be able to think for myself and maintain my lineage of thought and where I'm trying to go with things. So we don't get confused. I don't want to get confused. I want to like really understand it. And that's why I am not showy. I'm struggling with that. Like, right? I exist. So my memories today were an excerpt from the first book I wrote. 2018 was the memory. It's January 1st today. And then the next memory was thanking everybody for the accomplishment and the gratitude and the generosity and of accomplishing the Kickstarter campaign for the Portal Oracle. And since then, I've written 2 more books and released another set of cards. And we have our website and we have all this stuff. And yet, when we pay so much attention to this, we neglect what we're like a presentation. And when we're putting into presentation, we neglect this. And I also have dogs. I'm a single parent, right? With 3 kids and animals and life. And I can't just put myself in a private room and record and make sure that you get your videos out every day that are chocked full of bullshit to make sure that I reach the quota for the algorithm. I'm not going to do that. If I have to stay small because I am not putting my energy into that, that's fine. If it's just there's few of you that sit and listen with me, you don't know how grateful I am. And if it's just us that know this stuff, maybe they'll catch up. But I'm tired of trying to make people see things that they don't want to look yet. So if anybody's confused why I am all over the place, not really. Heathen Stargazers, that's what we are. That's what we do. And it's, like I said, it's all relative. And if you want to know what we're about, go back and look at it. If you have questions on topics, go through the titles on the YouTube channel. Go through the titles. Go through the website, through the titles. It's all there. And if it sounds weird, like there's actually 4 poles to the earth and it's a gyroscope, that sounds so weird. But you know what? It makes sense. Radians make sense. The OM as trigonometry makes sense. If you want to know why they look like plasma discharges, maybe it's because they're mathematical calculations. And if anybody tells you that isn't me, trust that they got it from me. That sounds cocky, but you know, we got to own our shit. I'm tired of being walked on. You heard it here first. You follow me? You follow me. All right, so I opened this book and I got out this deck because I wanted to pull a card in celebration of all of this hard work and all of those achievements and say thank you for being here. And how do we make it grow, and what do we do? Do we stop focusing on trying to make it grow and we just keep focusing on the work? Because that's kind of where I'm at. And this is what I pulled. Soar. See if I can see it. No, it's not doing that. You have to crawl before you can run. You have to crawl before you can walk. Walk before you can run. Run before you can leap, and leap before you can fly. You've taken all the steps to bring you here. You have mastered every nuance of the wind. You know that the air will take you where you want to go, and when you join it, to ride effortlessly to your destination. All you need to know now is lift your wings and soar. So that's what we're going to do. And we're going to just continue to work. So thank you for being here with me. Thanks for listening. And thanks for sharing. Hope you guys have a wonderful, wonderful new year.